Oh wait, I want to stop.
On Zoom. Camera over there, even though we can see it right here. So welcome to Zoom, folks, and glad you're here with us. We know that sometimes it's a little bit challenging to get somewhere of a Tuesday evening, and so appreciate those of you who are here in person as well as those who get to join us virtually. So thanks to everyone who made this event possible, all the volunteers who showed up and brought food and beverages, all of the staff and other folks working behind the scenes to make this happen. Thanks everybody for coming together to make this event possible. And I'd also like to mention that 350 PDX is a climate and environmental nonprofit. And so many of you who are here maybe are connected to 350 PDX already, but just in case that you don't know who we are, we've been around for a little over 10 years now, coming up on our 11th anniversary. And we've been engaging Portlanders in advocating for climate justice in Portland and around the region. And in case you don't know what our name means, people wonder, what's 350 mean? That we are part of an international organization called 350.org, and we're the Portland chapter of that. And there are chapters all over the world, independent chapters, and so we're the Portland one. And the 350 name is chosen because 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide is the healthy amount to have in the atmosphere. And I checked a couple days ago, and we're now at 426 parts per million, according to NASA. So we have our work cut out for us, right? So that's why forums on this topic of climate and environmental justice are so important, that we can find out what our leaders, our potential leaders are going to be doing to help reduce and mitigate this harm and make sure that we get back to safe levels, not only of carbon dioxide, but all of the other intersecting challenges that we face. So we appreciate everyone taking the time to think about this important issue and how we are going to work on it together collectively, including our future leaders. So tonight we will hear from, I think, 9 candidates about because of people running for City Council in District 2, and we invited folks who had met the small donor match. And so there are many, many great candidates to choose from, and it's great that District 2 has so many. So we limited to just the people that had met the small donor match. We know that is not everyone, who some of the candidates didn't even try because they maybe have a reason that they don't want to have money in politics and stuff like that. So, so this excluded some candidates, and we will also have a climate justice voter guide that is coming out as the ballots are coming out in a couple of weeks on the 15th. And so you can look for that and see all of the candidates and their opinions, all of the ones that contribute to that. So the due date is today, so you know you're all here. Get it in tomorrow, I'll understand. Yeah, so I don't know if there are any candidates who are here that weren't up on the stage. Come on in.
Sorry, it's coming in hot.
Glad you're here. We have 10 candidates. Thank you. Glad you could make it, Tiffany. All right. So let's see. Also, you might have noticed the little booklets that we handed out at the front that have blank pages, because I don't know about you, but for me, remembering exactly who said what when 10 candidates are talking is a little bit challenging. So you might want to take some notes in that booklet. So if you didn't get one already, we can pass some around, but that's a great way to help you remember when you're going to vote what each person said. And also wanted to give a plug for a couple of other things that are coming up, which is our mayoral forum that you need to save the date for on the 20th, the night of the 20th. And then also we're going to have a Get Out the Climate Vote action night for October on the 23rd of October. So those 2 events are coming up. If you're on our mailing list, you'll hear about them again, but just want to make sure people have those on your calendar. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Jacob Apenes, who is a member of Sunrise PDX and is going to serve as our moderator tonight. So thank you so much for being willing to do that for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to be very quick because I feel like we have lots of cool candidates to learn about and lots of questions to answer. But yeah, my name is Jacob Apenes. I'm one of the campaign co-leads for Sunrise PDX. We're a youth-led climate justice movement here in Portland. Focused a lot on the fact that the world is burning as we speak or flooding as we speak, and we really need to make pretty drastic changes to actually have livable climate. So we focus a lot on using our own voice as youth to talk about serious issues and really bringing kind of truth to power to the climate crisis. So happy to be here, happy to be moderating. I think what we'll do for the first beginning is just do quick 1-minute intros for all the candidates, and then we'll go and dive into the questions. I think for this quick intro, I'll just pass around the mic, but when I start asking questions, I'll just keep the microphone here. People can walk up to answer the questions. Hopefully that's okay. Yep. Cool. I'm going to start with Nat, and we'll go.
Would you put them in order? I mean,
Oh.
Wow.
That could help.
Okay, I think it's alphabetical order by last name.
Okay, I'm somewhere.
So Glickman will be first, and West will be last.
Let's see if we can manage this.
It's really funny because we did talk about so anyway, going back down.
Separating it out to 1-minute intro first.
Okay. Down here. Okay. Not alphabetical by last name.
The part of the mic. That's great.
But he's starting at the back end.
But you can start either way.
And now it's already in the right.
We'll start with Nat West and move this way, and then when we do questions, they'll come up to the mic stand to speak.
That shows how well we can organize the city council.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll point out, I was in the right seat.
You knew right away.
I just didn't want to be the center of attention, so I said whatever.
Okay, my name is Nat West. Some of you may know me as Reverend Nat. I own Reverend Nat's Heart Cider here in Portland for 12 years. What you probably don't know is that I was recently a TriMet bus driver. So my take on climate justice is primarily around changes to our transportation system, which is a win for climate. It's a win for public safety. Did you know that we're at a 30-year high of traffic deaths right now? And it's a win for livability, making our cities nicer to be in.
Yeah. That was 30 seconds. Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, you're 30 seconds left over. No.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. First of all, where's Nora? The zucchini cake was amazing. I heard you were the baker. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, that's your 30 seconds. My name is Jonathan Tassini. I'm a 40-year union member. I have the most support from labor in the entire city. I'm very proud of that. My entire passion and goal for running is to raise wages for everyone. And as I handed out defining who I am, I handed out a piece of paper. I am the sole candidate to be endorsed by Bill McKibben, who was the founder of 350.org and a global change leader. And Bill and I have collaborated on climate and work for over 30 years. And he wrote, this was his words, not mine, Jonathan Tassini fights at the important intersection between environmental change and the lives of workers. It's a crucial place to be. That defines what I'm about.
Hi. Okay. My name is Laura Strive. I am a parent of 3 kids. We live in St. John's, which is very close to the train track cut and the CEI hub. So these climate crisis issues are front and center when I walk out my door every day. I founded and have been running an arts and music educational nonprofit for the last 17 years. We've actually partnered with Sunrise PDX in the past. One of my teaching artists was very involved in Sunrise back in the day. And so we've done several murals that the kids led on arts education, thinking about the climate crisis and really instituting reusable supplies whenever we can do that for our kids. So I've been teaching through art, climate resilience and climate justice. And I'm excited to be here tonight.
Hi, thank you, everybody. My name is Tiffany Penson, born, raised, and rooted in the city. I still live in the house I grew up in Concordia area. Yeah, that's a rarity. So, woo! I also am elected to Portland Community College School Board. This is my second term, so thank you voters for electing me into office. PCC has career pathways that are starting to focus really on climate resilient and change. And I'm really happy to be here because this is not my natural space. So I'm really here to really learn and know more. I also have worked at the city for over 20 years, passing all kinds of policy. And where I see this climate issue come up way back then, and trees and all of that, is I started in the Bureau of Development Services. So a lot of these issues come up when you're talking about building and expanding our city. So I am really excited. I'm not an expert on anything. I just learned about the CEI hubs, and wow, you drive by stuff all this time and you don't know what it is. So I'm here to learn. I'm here to talk about what needs to happen and how we can work together to do that. And thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Park. Thank you for having us back to 350 PDX. Thank you all for the incredible work that you do. My background is in public serving nonprofit myself. So I have spent the last 5 years working at a nonprofit here in Portland that provides programming to public schools to support students with learning challenges. I've spent 6 years working in supportive housing, housing 450 formerly chronically homeless adults with acute mental and behavioral health challenges in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And I decided a couple of years ago that I felt, like I imagine many of you in this room, that I was really working to address the symptoms of what are ultimately systemic problems. And I decided it's time for me to get into the local political side to make the institutional changes. So that is what I am, one of you who has been doing this work, and I want to be our advocate on the inside. So that is why I'm here to talk to you. I look forward to talking about these things.
Clap, please clap. I don't want to sit through another forum where everyone's just like quiet the whole time. Like, this is church, clap, amen, whatever you want to do. Yeah, so my name is Chris Wilson. I'm running for City Council District 2, and I've been a longtime community organizer and in the nonprofit space. I've done communications as well. I spent 4.5 years in the inner city of Chicago, working with people there from all different backgrounds, organizing, trying to solve people's problems. And I'm running for Portland City Council because I believe that we should have representation of everyday people on Portland City Council. I'm the youngest person running in this race in District 2. I'm also a renter, and I just want to have a climate future that works for everybody, because everyday people need clean water, air, clean air to breathe, have a river that is clean for us to swim in. So it's just, we need to make sure that we have people who know how to work on the ground with everyday folks, listen to their needs, and represent them on the city council. There we go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Marshall. My husband and I live at 21st and Siskiyou. And we moved there 11 years ago because of the tree canopy in Irvington. It's so extraordinary. And we had moved up previous to that from San Francisco, and where I spent many years on the board and several years as chair of Friends of the Urban Forest. And so the urban forest and the tree canopy is a hugely important issue to me. My day job, I'm the co-founder and executive director of an organization called Oregon Recovers, and we advocate for an end to Oregon's addiction crisis. I'm a person in long-term recovery. Come January, I will celebrate 17 years clean and sober. Thank you. And it has been so. The last 7 years has been almost exclusively dedicated to trying to deal with our addiction crisis. And the reason I decided to run for city council was I don't feel that the city council is dealing with our addiction crisis. I feel we can't move on to other issues until we deal with it. And so I'm really looking forward to making that happen. Really grateful to be here.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Debbie Kitchen. I've been a small business owner for the last 30 years. My husband and I own a remodeling company, and we specialize in sustainable building, in energy efficiency, and using renewables in our projects. We do both residential and commercial. So we've done some high performance building remodels, and that's been a focus for the last 30 years. Prior to that, I was an economist and also worked in the energy industry then. I worked mostly for the Northwest Power Planning Council, and I did forecasting for assessing the potential for energy efficiency and renewables. So I did forecasts for building stock. You know, hotels have a much different profile than hospitals in energy use. So I'm very familiar with the issues that we have to deal with. I'm committed to working on that. I think this is, you know, an existential crisis, the climate change. So that's something that we need people who have experience in this area to work on. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samir Canal, Canal for Portland. I'll be first on your ballot, and I hope to get your first place ranking. I am originally from Portland, originally from this district. I was born in Overlook, and I now live in Portsmouth, right by that Eagles Lodge, if you're familiar with the complete lack of trees there on the street. I left for a few years. I went to Seattle, Dallas, and New York. I did labor organizing with AFT. I did human rights advocacy, including around climate and specifically nuclear policy at the UN. And I also organized around racial justice. And I brought that back with me to Portland. My first government job was as the project manager of the Police Accountability Commission at the city. And doing that work, yeah, thank you. Doing that work, what I found is that we know what we want as Portlanders, and we tell our government, and that's the end of the story too often, when it should be the beginning of one. And I'm running because we need to put the power back in the hands of the people who tell government what we want and often have not been heard. And I think there's nowhere starker that that's true than in the context of climate change. We'll talk about that and a few other issues, questions coming up. But thank you for your time. Thanks to the host for having us, and thanks to Sunrise for being here.
Good evening. I'm Marnie Glickman. I live in Sabin neighborhood. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for organizing this forum. I first became an environmentalist in 1990 when the International Panel on Climate Change came to Georgetown University, where I was a student, and it changed my life forever. So since then, I have been working in and out of the environmental movement. I've served as an elected official, a mom, and I'm right now a martial arts instructor for little kids. So I'm running because I refuse to believe that this is the best we can do in Portland. And in 10 years, are we going to look back and say, wow, look how far we've come? And I believe we can do it. We have the plans to do it. We have all of you to do it with us. And I would be so honored to serve as your city council lady.
Thank you, candidates. We'll now go into questions. We have 5 questions lined up. We might cut short if we run long on time. But I'll start with this first question. Just a reminder, after asking a question, I think I'll start the other way around and have Marty go first, and then answer the questions up here. So question 1, as we all know, human-caused climate change is a threat to human and other life on this planet, unlike any we've ever seen before. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warns that global greenhouse gas emissions must peak by 2025, then reduce to about half those emissions by 2030 to hopefully keep warming at a safe level, below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Most of this would be within your tenure if you're elected. If we do not achieve this goal, economic and social systems, food and transportation systems, and governmental and other institutions will experience massive disruption, with the worst effects typically felt by those who have done the least to cause this problem. Please share with us your policy priorities that will help Portland do its part to address climate change, build a more sustainable community, and work towards environmental justice.
I brought some notes so I can cover some high points in 2 minutes. First of all, I support amending the comprehensive plan to clarify that the fossil fuel phase out is a binding goal. This is really important to do. And I think that I have the legislative skills and experience to find 7 people, at least 7 on the city council to do that. Number 2, we need to ensure that Portlanders can easily and safely be in Portland and go across the city without a car. We know that transportation emissions are the greatest contributor right now in our city. We know, looking at Paul Rippey, we know induced demand is real. I do not support freeway expansions. And we know also that this is a great need. 1/3 of Oregonians and Portlanders can't drive a car, whether it's being too old to drive, too young to drive, being with a disability and not able to drive. And the city council can make a real positive impact in everyone's lives and in economic development. Number 3, I know that our city only builds 4 miles of protected bike lanes a year. We can do better than that. And people are like, what's your vision, lady? My vision is that we go crazy and try and build 8 miles of protected bike lanes a year. I think we can do it, Portland, and we can once again become a cycling leader in the world. And that also, involves encouraging all of us that 25% of our trips can be by cycling. And so, I want to say that part of this is having leaders, that we all elect leaders who are inspirational leaders, who don't, fight for what's right. Compromise only when it's needed. And I know we can get this done together. Thank you.
Simply put, I support a Green New Deal for Portland. I think that we have a lot of policies that have been proposed at the federal level that we can apply here. But I want to start by talking about, I agree that transportation is the sector to focus on first, is where most of the emissions, housing is the other major location. But when we're talking about building more ways to be car-free, making it easier to have car-free plazas, protecting Fenwick Plaza and Dream Street Plaza in this district, for example, but also ensuring that you, with your right that you have, a right to freedom of movement, it shouldn't be rationed based on your ability to pay or your age. And so that means ensuring that there's opportunities available to transport yourself in another way, specifically light rail. I'm calling for a light rail line from St. John's to the airport along the Lombard Columbia corridors. It's really vital that we do that. And also that it's not just about, yes, it is green. Yes, it helps us get around. And that's true. And the streetcar is fully electric. And there's a lot of good reasons to do it. It's also better for our safety. Traffic being the 3rd leading cause of death in the long-term average in Portland is another good reason to do this work. And I think that's how we build coalitions, by talking about the intersections here. And another part of this has to do with ensuring that we're building our major infrastructure projects in a sustainable way. So that means I support the albino lid. I also oppose doubling the width of the freeway categorically, as well as the interstate bridge replacement with light rail. And so ensuring that we are doing that and ensuring that I'm leveraging my experience, having worked on the Vancouver and Washington side in politics, I worked for Governor Inslee for a while, to help build coalitions around that, and also talking about the economic benefits of that are how we build coalitions. I believe that Vision Zero, 25% of trips by bike, these are not aspirational goals, these are numerical targets, and we can achieve them. We also need to be supporting a lot of other policies that we probably won't have time to talk about today, but that's all on my website under my climate justice plan. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I'm thinking about this issue in 2 different ways. One is the transportation issue, and then the built environment. So on the built environment, that's where I have far more experience. I think we have opportunities in both commercial buildings and residential buildings to lower our carbon footprint. And also, and there are lots of opportunities for energy efficiency. And that's something that isn't considered sexy these days compared to renewables. But renewables have some of their own issues in terms of the materials that are used to create them. So I'm really wanting to push energy efficiency, and there's cutting it. I've seen it over my lifetime, the technology changes that can bring about more energy efficiency. So, and then finally, or another thing is in the transportation side, we need to make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and people using transit. That's the way that we're going to get more people to use these options. Right now, you can have 80% of your trip on a bike be pretty safe, but then you have some intersection or some part of the connection that is just unsafe, and people don't do the whole trip because of that. So we need to look at that connectivity and make sure that we understand where those pressure points are and just making sure the whole trip can be safe. And then the other part that I'm supporting is density. We need to increase density in our inner city. So I'm supporting the Inner East Side for All program that's being promoted, and that would increase density in our close-in neighborhoods. That makes it more walkable, more friendly for transit. And then finally, I'm a big fan of the Frog Ferry. We should be having this. There is no reason we can't take advantage of federal dollars to get that. So thank you.
Mike Marshall again, and like Tiffany, I'm here to learn a lot, but I can say there are three things that I absolutely think need to happen. Number one, public transportation needs to be free. My understanding from my friend Nat here is that of the $1 billion plus budget, TriMet budget, only 60 million is from fares. And so it makes no sense that we are charging people, the poor families, 12% of the population, District to 12, to live under the poverty level. They're spending about $6,000 a year on public transportation, about $10,000 on automobiles. And so we have, by making transportation free, we incentivize getting people out of their cars. And we also lift people up financially. So it makes a lot of sense. Second, I think we need to, and I'm a little frustrated, we just voted on the gas tax and this didn't happen. We need to convert the gas tax from a flat fee to a percentage of the sale price, just like we do with tobacco, what I'd love we would do with alcohol. But we have the added benefit of then, as we convert more drivers to electric cars, we're gonna lose revenue if we don't start to have a percentage tax on that. And so we have the benefit there of generating more revenue for deferred maintenance on the roads so that we're not aspiring for 8 miles, but we're aspiring for 20, 30 miles of bike paths. And then lastly, the urban forest. I believe I read in the Shade Equity Plan that we have space for over 1 million trees. And I think we planted 500 in the last year, which is insane. We know that there is a huge benefit to building a tremendous urban forest. And so I think we should come up with a plan of 1 million trees in 20 years and use that to engage people that are coming out of addiction and in recovery and need jobs, have them out planting trees. Because I can tell you when I got sober, being in nature was one of the things that helped keep me in recovery. So I think, again, we'd have an added benefit. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Chris Olson. You can check me out at olsonforpdx.com. I'm so glad to be here and be in this space today. I love it. Been here multiple times for different events and worked with Sunrise, and I'm very happy to be with you guys. I want to do something that just like instead of just repeating honestly a lot of the points that were made, which I all agree with. I think they're great ideas. I'll just point something that I think out in my platform, which is unique, which is I want to increase the PSEP tax on billion-dollar corporations because we actually need a way to pay for all these wonderful ideas that just came up. So my idea is that we would just send it back to the voters and we would have a 1% increase on the corporations that make over $1 billion a year. And currently it's just retail corporations. I'm willing to push that to be larger corporations, other types of corporations and going from there. But we need to find a way to actually pay for all these things we need so we have a climate resilient city for the future that we're expecting to have. So it's we can talk about these ideas all day, but we're in a budget crunch right now. We have a lot of resources that are being dedicated to things that we don't need, or don't need a lot of, which it's like our police department that's taking up a huge chunk of our budget. I want to specifically have a portion of the PSEP tax that is dedicated to green projects for the city of Portland specifically. So that we're actually not touching on the original purpose of the PSEP tax, and that interest that's coming off of those investments are not going to fill the gaps in the city's budget right now. So that would be my biggest difference because we got to actually have the resources to do all these cool ideas that are up here on the stage. The other thing I just want to mention real quick is that also just pay attention to who's here tonight because there's a vice presidential debate and a watch party over in St. John's that a bunch of people are at that decided to go to that and not to this. So we care about these issues and want to actually address them when elected to city council. So remember our names, and hopefully rank us on your ballots.
He said it, not me. I'm Jennifer Park. So I mean, there's so many of us, we have such great ideas. I'm gonna try not to repeat a bunch of the stuff that's happened, but so my platform, you're gonna see me talk about climate-focused policymaking. And what I mean by that is that we need to not only pay attention to climate impact of things when we're talking about these amazing ideas, we need to be talking about the climate in literally every policy we evaluate. In what way does this policy impact the climate, impact our built environment? In what ways are we able to enhance sustainability and resiliency as our communities need to adapt to our changing environment? So I will be pushing for laying a foundation in our new city council of ensuring that we are actually considering that in literally every policy. Housing is a big issue for me. So housing, many ways we can approach it. We can expand the model of the Eco-Lloyd district, where we are making really resilient neighborhoods. So our development can be green development that is reducing the impact of our expansions and our development on our environment and on our systems. So we don't have to constantly upgrade our systems to account for our density. And we have models here in Portland where it's successful. I mean, Eco-Lloyd is one of the only eco districts, certified eco districts in the country. And we have that right here. So that would be one. Transportation, we need to make it easy for people to not get in their cars, right? I'm going to emphasize that. A few folks have said that, but I'm going to emphasize that. Many of us are still going to have vehicles, right? Because we live in the Pacific Northwest. We want to go camping in the gorge. We want to go to the beach, but we want to make it as easy as possible to reduce how much time we're spending in those cars. And part of that is the design of our public transit system. We need to break down the hub and spoke system. Oh, I totally ran out of 2 minutes already. All right, more to say later. Thank you.
Thank you again, Tiffany Penson. I'm really glad to be here and learn and listen. But one thing, I would be remiss if I didn't have the real conversation to really tell you what's going through my head right now. There's nobody in this room that looks like me. There's often nobody in the room that looks like me in these conversations. And so while I work at the city, I've worked there, I've passed a lot of policy, I know how to get things done, all of the things. I'm not even going to talk about me. But I am sitting here and I'm thinking about that. And I'm thinking about how I'm the chair of Kairos PDX, preschool to 5th grade, kids of color, right? That are starting to have these conversations. But I also think about a lot of those kids are brought to school by their grandmothers and have to run from here to here, have to come all the way from East Portland, have to do all the things. And so when we make these rules and these laws, we often forget poor people, which equates to people most times that look like me. And while I am a firm believer we need good multimodal transit, firm believer in that. When you start totally talking about taking away from cars and things like that, sometimes that is not real for people who have to transport from east to west to this, grandbabies, daughters, and pick up the slack. And so one thing I'm thinking about is how do we have more inclusive outreach to really have these conversations and invite people in? I was around when Williams Avenue happened. My grandmother lived up the street. That did not go well for us because you know what it felt like? It felt like all of a sudden that there's 3,000 bikes coming up the city. Now we want to do something. My mother, Black families used to go down to council and say, please slow Williams Avenue down. It's a fast moving street. Nothing was done. So all I'm saying to you, this is one reason why I want to be here, because I want to learn. I want to take it back, and I want all of us to be in on the conversation because it impacts us more than many of you in the real way. So I'm just going to stop there, but I'm just happy to be here and happy to be in the room.
Thank you, Tiffany. In thinking about the PSEF funds, those funds are supposed to be dedicated for historically underinvested communities. And there's a ton of money that's sitting in there, so we need policymakers that are looking at these communities and listening to communities that are often not at the table. Just this morning, I'm thinking of the transportation piece. My little dude is loving riding his bike to school, and our bike bus at our Title I school is really getting going. And there's one interchange right on Lombard that it terrifies me every day. Like, I'm like, okay, make sure you hit the stop, the walk sign, because it gives us extra time to cross. And my eyes are big as saucers as we're going across. And my little dude's right behind me going, I hope they stop. I hope they stop. I hope they stop. They have a red light. They're supposed to stop. But I have yelled at so many cars. And that is the one interchange that terrifies me every day. And he's in 3rd grade. There's no way he's not going to ride to school without an adult with him. So we need to be thinking about these pathways that are supposed to be bike friendly, that there are, I want like a flashing red light. And the other person that's running our bike bus, we emailed PBOT to be like, hey, I've almost been hit like 5 times at this one corner. What do we need to do to have a no turn on red sign? Because it's a turn lane that goes right into downtown St. John's. And they're like, well, we really need to study it. Like, no, can we just stop studying? Like, how many, does someone actually have to get hit before we take action? I would like for us to be proactive in how we look at intersections and how transportation is working. And then on a whole other tangent, on the building code, there are great architecture firms that are here in Portland. Plug, my husband works for one of them, but they are working on green infrastructure, and they are working on there's a whole climate system called JUST that is working on not only the infrastructure that's green, but are they treating their employees well? So those are my 2 things.
I know what to do. Instead of the bike is pressing button, and car drivers.
I got it. Excuse me. Jonathan Tassini again. So I have a whole set of climate change proposals on my website, jonathantassini.com. I was the first candidate back in the fall to propose, for example, risk bonding for fossil fuel companies, which we need to do. And all these proposals and suggestions are great. I want to use my time to shift the conversation to something else. And it goes back to the conversation that Bill McKibben and I, the founder of 350.org, who has endorsed me, have had for 30 years. And that is that this is about corporate power. And this is something we don't want to talk about in this city. The truth is that the real threat to working people and to the planet, and I sat down and wrote this out a little bit because I was very passionate about this, is unbridled, exploitive corporate power. We know what to do about the planet. It is not a mystery. We don't need more proposals, analysis, and data. The reason that Zenith Energy got its license is because the current city council sold us out. That is the truth. The reason that people do not have a decent standard of living in this country and in this city is because corporations fight every attempt to unionize. Corporations oppose every attempt to raise the minimum wage. So my priority is simple. We know how to get this done. I will meld the environment and labor because there's not a light between those 2 priorities. All the abuse to workers and all the abuse to the planet comes from the same source. And so my goal as a city council person is to every day work to unmoor and uproot from our government the very mindset and economic powers who stand in our way to have a healthy planet. Every single day, my one guiding philosophy for everything that comes before us will be the people come first. Thank you very much.
I get to go last, which is great because there were a lot of awesome ideas that came out of this group. You all have a very challenging job ahead of you to pick your 6 favorite people. If you look at the list of endorsing organizations and the number of endorsements that they've each given, you'll find that District 2 has the most number of endorsements. Think about SEIU. I think there's 5 of us who just got that one. So this is a power group here we have here. Who's traveled in European cities? Look at this. Cool, all right. Has anyone heard of a 15-minute city? All right, that means that you can get anywhere you want to go in 15 minutes or less, primarily from foot, public transit or bicycle. That's a combination of things. It's how you choose to build your cities. It's how you choose to build your transportation. And it's how you plan for the future so that as you add more population, we're not relying on cars. America didn't do that in the 50s and 60s. We came up with a suburb model. So you're going to get your car and you're going to drive. And we're actually seeing implication of that right now in downtown Portland, where downtown is kind of a ghost town because nobody lives in downtown Portland. But if you go to Slabtown, anybody in Slabtown recently? There's a lot of residential in Slabtown. So it isn't about downtown Portland is dead. It's about when you separate transportation, when you separate employment and residents far apart, like we chose to do, you end up with all kinds of people drive, and then when you have pandemics, nobody's around there anymore for the next pandemic. Transportation is 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation sector is 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and in the United States, 40. 40 in Oregon. It's nationwide. It's about 30-35%. So one of my main goals here is to defund ODOT and send that money to public transit.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you, candidates. Second question, we'll end up starting with Jennifer, and then we'll go down this way, and then to Marnie, and then back. So we'll go in the middle. Anyway, second question is related to PSEF. So the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund, also known as PSEF, is a unique program strongly supported by voters. In recent years, its focus has shifted slightly to fund city projects in cooperation with community-based organizations. These projects are intended to benefit the community, increase equity, and reduce our collective greenhouse gas emissions and other climate impacts. As a Portland City Councilor, will you ensure the Portland Clean Energy Fund remains focused on climate justice and community empowerment in line with what voters intended? Please share more about your reasoning and your policy priorities around PSEF.
Yes. Yes, I think we have done something so innovative with PSEF here. And just because we have so much money means we should redirect it. No, let's set our sights even bigger, right? We have incredible programs that we built on a small scale that we are now ready to expand. We can better support making our underserved communities more resilient to the impact on climate. We can use those funds to help them build communities up, to help our underserved communities that have less green space and less shade equity build up their resilience. And this is a really great place. So we had an initiative to get a measure on the ballot for public, participatory budgeting. Thank you. Participatory budgeting, and it's been punted to 2026. This is an incredible opportunity for us as the council to enact that proactively. We can make PSEF a place where the community gets to decide how we're spending that money, but there is zero reason why we should be redirecting those funds out of where it was intended when the voters voted it in. And frankly, we have a really big budget. We have an $8.2 billion budget. The city of Boston has a $4.8 billion budget. We have money, we're just done a really bad job of managing it. We are dealing with the implications of that through extended deferred maintenance. We have some catching up to do, but it is no excuse for us to be in this scarcity mindset. We really need to do better.
So just a quick little history about me. So I work for Sam Adams, who started all the biking. So the Williams Avenue project, I know all too well in the impacts. When we talk about PSEF, we need to use money how voters said. That's what voters said they wanted to do with it. We need to do that. What we are seeing now are people are frustrated because they're paying the second highest taxes of New York City and they're not seeing where their money is going. So when you start reallocating money, like we're good at taking the extras and throwing it into the general funds, and then we all fight for it for our little projects. When you start seeing that, that is what people, they don't trust us. So the money should be used for what it was voted in and designed to be used for. And I'm never gonna waver on that because I know what it looks like in the inside, right? And so when we think about PSEF is a great opportunity to bring in diversity, which they're doing with these culturally based organizations. And they do have stakeholders that decide who gets the money for these projects. So the concept is good. We need to expand on it, but we need to keep it tight. And then again, for your 15-minute neighborhoods, we have 20-minute neighborhoods. And that was something that was started under Sam around that. So I'm just a firm believer we use money how we're supposed to use it. And when we think about the deferred maintenance and everything, the reason why we have deferred maintenance, because we started reallocating the money that was used to maintain our streets for other things. And so one of the things I think about, because I understand the budget, we shouldn't have a spring and fall bump. We should actually have more of lean toward like a biennium budget so we can plan more and really achieve the things that we're supposed to be achieving. So I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to get in the weeds. I know too much.
I also fully agree with PSEF, talked about it a little bit before. I would love to see us. I feel like a lot of people in the city talk about, well, these different buckets of money. Nobody cares about how there's different buckets of money and how we can't use money because they're in their different buckets. We learned that in the when I was at the Pier Park pool, learning about that deferred maintenance, but talking about PSEF, we definitely need to make sure that our historically underinvested neighborhoods have the resources and the projects. Who are we? Let's dream big. I like the idea of dreaming big and thinking of how we can make sure they have tree canopies and keep those trees watered so we don't kill them. I don't know how many trees died recently because we didn't maintain what we planted. I would love to make maintenance sexy again, especially in our environment. And then totally lost my, oh yes, what Jennifer was talking about participatory budgeting. If we can get our young people and our youth excited about different projects that they see so many more needs. My kids always are telling me about different things they see that I don't have the bandwidth to see everything, and they see the little bugs on the ground and the grass and different things like that. So if we have our youth really investing in giving us good ideas, I think that will in turn give our whole communities more say and buy-in to what we're doing and build that trust back. I'm ending early.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and make the wild guess that every single person up here is gonna support PSEF. Which is what, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Going out on a limb. So I want to use this.
That stand for.
Portland Clean Energy Fund.
Thank you. So I'm gonna shift it a little bit.
Portland Clean.
Take away from my time.
Say it to the mic, Jonathan.
But no, they heard it. They heard it. I didn't want to interrupt the conversation.
Clean.
Yeah.
Clean Energy Fund. Thank you.
Portland Clean Energy Fund, PSEF.
We voted for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
we voted for it. It's like 67% voter approved. It's
And
a
there's
tax
a lot
on
of
large
money in it.
corporations. It's very cool.
And it just, can I add information? And the money was collected through a 1% tax on retailers that have $1 billion sales nationally and $500,000 and above locally. Okay, and that's where I want to take off. You can start my time again. This is a great lesson for us. When we passed that and we collected all this money, CEOs didn't go over to the St. John's Bridge and throw themselves into the Willamette River. The economy did not collapse around us. And the lesson is that in fact, we have plenty of money. And it is wrong for people to campaign and say somehow we have shortage in funds and that we are taxed too high. The truth is, the problem is who is being taxed and who isn't. And I like Chris's suggestion, by the way. I don't know if it would work perfectly to raise that tax to get more money into PSEP to do all the things. It's an interesting idea. The point is that we, the people, have to stand up and say that the people who, like Phil Knight, who are not being taxed enough, need to be taxed more. That the people in this room should get a working class kicker, which I'm proposing this campaign. We get rid of this stupid kicker that's shoveling all this money that is coming from our pockets into the pockets of the very wealthy. We have plenty of money. We have plenty of money to do all the things that we need to do. It's just, we have to stand up as the people and demand that that money is used in the proper way. That's the lesson from PSEP, the fact that we could tax very wealthy people, do something terrific, and set up an incredible mechanism and do wonderful things for our communities. And by the way, I support PSEP. I forgot to say that.
Yeah, we all support PSEP. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't. I'll give you a little more background about PSEP, but you can keep the clock running. It's fine. PSEP was so revolutionary that when it passed, not only did those CEOs not throw themselves off the bridge, they went to Salem and said, don't you ever let anything like this happen again. Eugene was ready to do it, and Salem passed a state law preventing this kind of tax from ever being instituted in the future. So we're stuck with PSEP, but that's a good thing. The tragedy is that according to state law, no one else is going to get it. No other cities are going to get it. There's so much to be, there was so much that they wanted to hide and prevent from happening about PSEP that the names of the businesses who are paying that tax is not known. Public records requests went in to the city to, we should be able to know who's paying the tax. The city of Portland sued local journalists to prevent release of that information. The lawsuit went through a process and got thrown out. We still don't have the names of everyone who's paying into PSEP. Why don't we have that? What are they hiding? I think every politician here, elected official, not elected official, candidate, every candidate here should have some hill that they're willing to die on. I will die on the hill of releasing the names of those companies because there's something in there that they don't want us to know about who's paying it and how well it's working, because it is working really well. The way I think we should continue to use PSEP money is primarily around job creation. So a couple of things. Have anybody heard of Port of Portland Terminal 2 mass timber site? It's a really cool, Tiffany knows everything. It's a really cool new project that's going to accelerate mass timber in the Pacific Northwest. It's a great use of natural building products. There's also, anybody heard of the Swan Island electrification project? Daimler Chrysler's put in a ton of money, states put in a ton of money. We should be also investing in clean energy, primarily around job creation.
Don't mix. I'm Marnie Glickman. I believe in people power democracy. And Portland has a history of people power democracy, and Portlanders making very, very good decisions at home, at work, at school, but at the ballot box too. So I support PSEP as originally voted on by the voters. I also support the Police Oversight Commission as originally approved by the voters. I believe in the voters' decisions, and that is a difference that is not all of us running for office in this city do. So that's my first point. Second of all, I don't think there is enough money in PSEP right now. We know that the needs from climate crisis are growing. We know everything is getting, the PPMs are going up faster than we thought. So I don't think it's enough to address the needs of Portlanders. Third, I don't think PSEP is necessarily here to stay. Why? Because we hear politicians, not in this room, but in a lot of the rooms, saying, not only should we be able to raid PSEP, let's send it back to the voters. Let's dismantle PSEP.
Not on our watch.
So I wanted to say that I have these skills and experience to persuade my colleagues, at least a majority of the colleagues, to defend PSAP, to make sure that we follow the voters' original intent by passing these measures. And I say that I am a graduate of Lewis and Clark Law School. I mentioned I served on the school board for 4 years, and I have a history of fighting against a few big corporations like Monsanto and winning.
So to the answer of defending. To the answer of defending PSEF, not just yes, but hell yes. And we need to be protecting it because it is a vital and successful revenue stream. We've seen already results, and a lot of the projects are not fully at the scale. I can't remember who mentioned that. I think it was Laura, that we need to have them continue to scale up and over time. And so we need to both defend the actions that are already underway and continue to protect the ability of PSEF to make more investments in the future. We've seen a narrative emerge that there isn't enough to do, that there's money there, but we don't know how to spend it. And that's ludicrous. Climate change is an existential threat. We all know that. And that requires us to not just say it, but put our dollars where our values are. And so I stand by that. And I also want to take a step back, as a couple others have, and talk about this is not just one thing. We have a toxic, broken culture in our government where we think that elected officials know better than you and me. And it doesn't matter what you voted on. We have the authority to do whatever. We hear that from our current council all the time. If you watch the K2 debate, you heard that. And, you know, as the only person who has actually been a steward of your vote, as the project manager for the Police Accountability Commission, I hold that sacred, right? That is the hill I will die on. And, you know, it doesn't matter that you might disagree with it as an elected official. The reason we had to go vote on it is because the elected officials weren't doing what they should have done in the first place. That's why we have ballot measures. It's to give that second option when Plan A doesn't work. And Plan A shouldn't then come back and undermine Plan B. That's why we did it in the first place. And whether it's preschool for all at the county level, or supportive housing services at the metro level, or charter reform at the city level, or the Police Accountability Commission and that board, which has been undermined over and over and over again by the current city council, we have to stand for it, and I will die on that hill. You deserve a government that listens to you, because it's safer and more prosperous for all of us. Thanks.
Debbie Kitchen again, and I'm really happy about all the comments that people are made, and I would also add my voice that I would defend PSAP and keeping it for the purposes that were passed. And it's really important that we look at those that are less represented and are most often impacted by climate change. And that's one of the characteristics about PSAP that I think is unique and visionary, and Portland voters approved that overwhelmingly. So that is a strong answer for me, but I also think it's a great program. And I want to make sure that there are elements of it. We have to do all the work for climate change. We have to do the work for resilience, but there are elements of it that others have mentioned, the workforce development. These are opportunities to have great jobs for people throughout our community. And it would be great to have more of people that are from communities of color, from women, from others that these are non-traditional jobs for. So let's make sure that the workforce part is really strong. And then the other part is capacity building. The PSEF included capacity building for community-based organizations, culturally specific organizations. And that is a key part of what PSEF was designed for. And we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of that we have that capacity building for coalitions and for the communities that are less represented. That's one of the big benefits of this. So it was really multi-benefit design of PSEF, and I want to keep all aspects of it.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, ditto. to what everybody heard. This morning, I got a chance to talk to my sister who lives in Asheville, North Carolina. And we had been able to get a hold of her for 72 hours and it was terrifying. And as we were talking, they were in South Carolina in a hotel room, perfectly safe. Their property is safe, but there are friends they can't get a hold of, right? And she pointed out to me that, they live at 2,000 feet in the mountains, 600 miles from the coast, and a hurricane destroyed half the city. And so, as Jennifer said, PSEF is like this amazing gift we've given ourselves. It's extraordinary. We were leading the nation in a city's response to this. And so we absolutely have to protect it. Everyone up here, I think, is going to be effective, but I want to take a little liberty because last week, the Willamette Week wrote a story about the fact that, about my work around addiction. And what they wrote was, in a political arena where passive aggressive behavior and faux politeness rule, Marshall left the passive part out. He challenged his opponents and told uncomfortable truth about damaged drugs and alcohol due to Oregonians. Both wreak havoc, more damage here than in many states. He made plenty of enemies in Salem, but did so in service of saving people's lives and helping them get sober. So the question for all of you is, who's going to be the strongest advocate, the loudest advocate in the years to come? As you pointed out, we are about to see something extraordinary, either positively or negatively. And so I think that quote makes the case for making me your number one choice.
All right, well, so I do want to send PSEF back to the ballot to increase the tax on billion-dollar corporations that have exploited this planet and have destroyed it and have not made it and is making it uninhabitable for us to live in. So yeah, I do want to send it back to the ballot for that reason, and it wouldn't end the fund. It'd be a measure to increase the tax because these corporations need to pay for the damage they cause so that the city can still be resilient in the years to come. So yeah, so let's tax these billion-dollar corporations, get them to pay their fair share and and get this fixed. So I'm absolutely in support of that. And then obviously I really appreciate just 350 PDX for doing a PSEF tour that we did a few weeks ago. It was a fantastic opportunity to see the projects that have been worked on. And there's a tremendous opportunity in the city to become the shining example of a climate resilient city in the future. And so we need to continue to, again, increase the PSEF tax, get the funds that we need so we can pay and get a city that works for everyone so that we can be a sustainable city for the years to come. So that's all I got. Again, I appreciate you. Also for PDX.com.
Thanks again, candidates. On a note of Hurricane Helene and stuff happening in the Southeast United States, you guys have an opportunity to donate to funds that are helping people get out of and rescued from the disaster. Would be a wonderful thing if you have the money or time or effort to do. It's pretty unimaginable to see 2,000 feet of elevation, 600 miles from the ocean, and entire cities wiped off the face of the earth. So yeah, fossil fuels caused that. And we fund it day in and day out, and we continue to drill. So yeah, need serious change and serious reforms for our systems at the state, the city level, the national level. So anyway, a time check, we're at 7:40, so we have about 20 minutes left. I was wondering if we would be able to do 1-minute answers for the next 2 questions, to be able to get through 4 questions and not just 3. I think that should be, hopefully that's enough time. Sorry.
We can go past 8, just I didn't want to go all the way to 8:30.
Yeah, let's aim for 1-minute answers for the next 2, and then we'll do a final light closing and be done around like 8:15. Cool. This question is about street trees. For the first time in the city's history, it recently allocated funding towards the maintenance of trees planted in the right-of-way. That's the streets, the sidewalks, the area that's not your house or your front yard, also known as street trees. The $65 million allocated over the next 5 years falls short of the $100 million needed to fully support this new program. And all the money comes from PSEF. To successfully close the shade equity gap in Portland, we need to find a secure long-term source of funding for street tree maintenance. What are your suggestions on how the city can identify and secure stable funding for maintaining street trees? And how do you view your role as a city council member in ensuring shade equity? As like an extra thing to note, the $65 million is going towards planting and maintenance for trees across right-of-ways for the next 5 years. That funding ends in 5 years. It's also shorter than the desired 100 million that's really in place. So not only will we be planting trees and wanting them for the first 5 years, there's no plan to maintain them after those 5 years. So we could just plant like thousands of trees and then let them die in 2030. So the question is, how do you stop that? Sorry, we'll start this time with Nat, if that's okay.
You gotta just suffer his wrath. You can't see. Oh, you're suggesting me go first. That's fine.
No, I
I'll
was
go.
actually thinking they get to go this way this time, but I.
Okay, whatever.
It'll be Nat and then.
Ready,
He's in charge.
ready.
Cooperate better than that.
All right, 1 minute, here we go. I think there's a meta picture to look at about street trees, and it's about shade equity. For the first time in the history of Portland, we're gonna have geographic representation. So where Laura lives, ain't no street trees. Where Mike, you're not getting any more street trees, but I'm sorry. So this is the time to focus on things like this. I just to bring up on PSEP one more time, I would look to increase the requirements to be more stringent for the city of Portland bureaus such as PBOT or Urban Forestry to take PSEF funds. We shouldn't be using PSEF to backfill budget gaps that are for our own climate goals. It's not just, I don't think that it should just be about our tax money though. I'd look to create public-private partnerships. We have a tree on our license plate. We should be the city of trees. We just gotta come up with a good name for it. I think there should be a luxury tax on very expensive housing to help pay for street trees.
So that's a piddling amount of money in the scheme of multi-billion-dollar budget. The fact that we are even thinking about that is startling to me. And it reminds me of a couple things. One is that this city council, the current one, there was an abject failure in bringing some of the federal money from the Infrastructure Recovery Act money. So we could have actually funded that and a whole bunch of other things. And the city council totally failed, no vision, and has left a huge amount of money that we could have used for all the things that people just mentioned before. So the way I would look at this is my goal, should I be lucky enough to be elected, the first month or two, I will ask the city manager to basically list every single tax break that this city has given to corporations. You notice that this current city council gave all these small businesses with no strategy at all, $250,000 tax break, the downtown folks. No strategy, I'll just throw money at it. And I want to list every single one of those tax breaks. And I guarantee you that we can find the money from those tax breaks for that tree program.
I liked what Nat was saying about the public-private partnerships. The city of Portland did have a really great working relationship with Friends of Trees. And someone else that's running in this district canceled that contract with Friends of Trees. And we've been lacking and needing to backfill that maintenance. So I would love to reinstitute that great partnership that had been working really, really well with Friends of Trees, because not only do they get people to plant, they recruit volunteers, they do job training, all these different things, and they keep our trees maintained. So that's one of the things that I would love to do with that.
I'm gonna shake it up a bit. We don't need any more taxes. We don't need anything like that. We have the money. What we are talking about, what people who have the political will to do what's right. We don't need any more money. We have bioswales now that we put in that we don't maintain. Don't put stuff in that we're not going to maintain and then ask for money later. It's part of planning for your city. And if we plant trees, we need to maintain trees. For a person that just had all new landscape put in, that was really expensive. And so we need to pay for the things that we put in. And it's not about asking you guys for another dollar. We have over $8 billion. We have enough money. I came up under the Randy Leonards, the Dan Salzmans, all of those guys, and they said, look, it is about political will. And I mean, I'm just gonna leave it there.
All right, so I agree with much of what's been said, that we do have money, we just need to manage it better, right? We have to look at our budget more comprehensively, and right now it's so siloed. But on the money piece, I just want to point out that a couple of things. One, Oregon is 50th on collecting corporate taxes. So any narrative that, you know, businesses are going to run away is false, because they pay less than the 49 other states. I learned that at an AFT Oregon budget training recently. It's crazy. But we also, the city council, we need to be lobbyists at the state level, because so much of this is out of our control, right? The fact that they have now made it so other cities can't have taxes like this. The kicker, not something that we can address here locally without lobbying at the state, right? So we need to be an interjurisdictional partnership with all the other organizations around us.
I'm not 100% sure the details of the program as to why it's only 5 years, but I will just go to the point of that. Increasing the PSEP tax on billion-dollar corporations, to sound like a broken record, will create money for us to pay for maintaining those trees. And those trees, and one thing needs to be brought up, it need to go distributed to the communities that need it most first. East Portland has usually on average 10 degrees hotter than the rest of the city. They're also, their lifespan is usually 10 years less than the rest of the city. So we need to make sure we're starting with the communities that deserve it first, including communities of color here that are in District 2. They need to get the trees, have those trees then maintained by, again, taxing the billion-dollar corporations that need to pay their fair share, so that we have a climate resilient city in the future. So thank you.
I'm with Tiffany. It's about political will, and it's also about creativity, right? Like, if there was anything's easy to fund, it is a tree. People will put money into it. Corporations want to hug them, and things like that. But the issue is the maintenance and the long term. Once someone makes an investment, who's responsible for that? And so I think that we should recognize that they are street trees, and therefore PBOT should have a requirement to be involved in all of this, both funding it as well as maintaining it. They have the infrastructure to do it. It's an integral part of the street. It slows down traffic. It absorbs carbon emissions. Street trees are part of our transportation system, or should be. But I also think we need to talk about not just street trees, but trees in our backyards and trees in our parks. And I don't know if there are any golfers here, but I'm a big believer in getting rid of our golf courses, modular housing and forests, and solar energy or whatever else. But anyway, thank you.
You gonna attack pickleball? Yeah. That's going in at the Lloyd Center.
That could be private.
Okay, well, Debbie Kitchen again, and I have neglected to say that Alana Pertl-Guiney had asked me to be sure to tell you that she wanted to be here, but she could not because of scheduling conflict. So don't take her absence as a sign of not being committed. So anyway, Alana Pertl-Guiney, yeah, I saw her tonight, last night at another event, and she asked me to say that. So I am supportive of making sure that we do maintain these trees over the long term and finding the budget for that. There is ongoing PSEF funding. And so I think maybe we just have to evaluate how those lifetimes or contract lengths are set for different lengths for different types of projects. And I would also say that I liked what other people were saying about public-private partnerships. I'm a big believer in that. And that we did leave lots of money on the table for infrastructure dollars from the federal government, and we need to advocate for state dollars. So that's my time.
Yeah, I do support bringing back Friends of Trees partnership. I also support green infrastructure bonds and taxing the polluters. I think that let the polluter play is a really important principle. This is something that matters a lot to me because I grew up in this area. I grew up in this district. I am a brown kid, not the only candidate of color up here, but I also have that in common, and I also have asthma. And when I lived in New York, that environmental change from having only lived in Portland and Seattle to New York immediately affected my particular condition. And I started having asthma attacks for the first time after 10 years of not having them here. And so this is something that matters. And it also matters to this district, not just East Portland. They have the biggest problem. But if you've driven on Lombard and you go through Portsmouth where I live, I mentioned I live by the Eagles Lodge, there are no trees there. And so this is something we need to prioritize dramatically. And I think the last thing I'll mention is it is about political will and about people who aren't going to take, contributions from places that are not in the pro-environmental stance, and ensuring that you can trust that someone is going to fulfill your will once they get there. But that's the important thing. We'll all say it, we all support it, but who can you trust once you get there to actually implement these things? So thank you.
Well, I'm going to answer the question about trees and revenue. So first of all, I think we have to walk our talk. And so I want to share, first of all, that I am a member of the board of Portland Fruit Tree Project. So I've been involved in this work for a little bit. And I want to tell you that I am open to having discussions about increasing revenue for the city of Portland. I think that's one of the differences that you can find between candidates is who has no new taxes and who is open to the discussion. So I am open to the discussion. Because I don't think we have enough money to meet our needs. I also want to share that I am one of the only candidates in District 2 who has been on a board who has managed a public budget. The school board's budget that I managed was small compared to the city's, only about $35 million. But these conversations are complicated and long and take a lot of effort. And I'm willing to put it in for the trees and everything we care about. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, candidates. One last question before we do some closing stuff. Well, it's a long one. It's about Zenith. A major issue for all of Portland, and particularly for District 4, is the critical energy infrastructure hub, a 6-mile stretch of land along the Willamette River in Northwest Portland, where 350 million gallons of fuel is stored on a liquefaction zone, many of which is in aging tanks that are not seismic proof. One of the companies operating in this area is Houston-based fossil fuel company Zenith Energy. By the time this new city council takes office in January, it is possible that a decision on Zenith Energy's pending DEQ air quality permit will not yet have been made. Under some Oregon rules, there's the ability for you as city councilors to revoke the land use compatibility statement, also known as a LUX, at any time before that air quality permit is granted by the state. There are several grounds the council could rely on to revoke this permission, such as the city did a backroom deal, the city is it's not good for the environment, Zenith lies about how much fuels they actually transport, it's not actually in alignment with the original LUX. Anyway, when elected into office, do you commit to withdrawing Zenith's LUX? Given that the permit was granted to the company after confirmed illegal lobbying, please also share your policy ideas regarding how you will address the climate, ecological, and public health dangers posed by the critical energy infrastructure hub, also known as CEI hub. Some candidates say. I think this time we'll start with Chris, and we'll go this way, and then back this way.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so the trains do go through District 2, and then there was one that just derailed a little while ago by the Steel Bridge, which I bike over almost every day. And I don't want that to be happening again. Imagine if fortunately that tanker was empty, but it was actually full. So I'm sorry, other way. Tanker was empty. Imagine if it was actually full. And the disaster that could have caused on one of our most critical bridges in the city, because it actually has TriMet, good pedestrian walkway, and rail that goes underneath it. So this is a huge issue that we have to deal with, and we need to revoke Zenith's LUX. I'm definitely in support of that, and we'll absolutely do it. I'm sure all of us behind here most of us will agree with this. I can't speak for everyone, but I think so. Well, just got a few seconds left. I want to, with the critical energy infrastructure hub, is make sure that we are relocating it through different parts of the state. It would be a huge deal if there was a natural disaster. It would create one of the biggest natural disasters in the history of the Pacific Northwest. If it were to end up spilling to the Willamette River, we'd have unbreathable air for weeks. We'd have a river probably on fire. That's just unacceptable risk for us to have in our communities. Where, right, District 2 is in much of a risk of that than any other district. So I would support just move the CI infrastructure hub throughout the state so that is in a better place. And then hopefully one day we get rid of all fossil fuels. So, thank you.
So I was struck by something Tiffany said earlier about how until this race didn't really know about the CEI hub. And I knew about it 10 years ago. I was executive director of the City Club of Portland, and we did a report on the emergency if there's the big earthquake, and learned that the river would catch on fire because of the hub. But in the intervening years, we just have not had a public dialogue about it. And yet it is the single largest threat to our families today. And if Asheville didn't teach us something this morning, it was that anything can happen. And so I'm sure and I spoke to a local elected official the other day who I have high regard for, and she was saying, it can't be moved, it's a lot of work. And I'm sure it's very complicated, but at the end of the day, there's nothing complicated about the threat. And so I would vote to revoke the Lux. Largely to send a message to Salem and to Washington, D.C. that this is an existential threat to our families. And we collectively need to come to the table and find a rapid solution to it, recognizing that it can't happen overnight, but it has to happen.
So I'm Debbie Kitchen again, and definitely this is a huge risk, the CEI hub, and all the fuels being in one place does not make any sense, and it's a very unsafe place. So that you just, it doubles down on the issue. And so I do agree that we need to move the tanks that we still need. It's going to be some time before we're totally fossil fuel free. So we need to make sure we still can store some of that fuel someplace, but it needs to be not there and moved in with more diverse locations. I don't think it should be a hub where all the fuel stored for the state is in one place. That seems like just too much risk at once. The oil trains going through our city are also a huge risk. And I would also recommend that we have the risk bonding. We need to make sure that we are covered financially for that, but that is still going to be just small comfort if there is an accident. So we need to look at the safety issues. I would initially, I think the goal would be to try to remove that the fuel hub from there. But in terms of Zenith, I think we do need to have some type of legal opinion on that, because I am a little concerned about how at this point revoking it, whether that could put us at risk of a lawsuit. So I just would make sure first to do a legal opinion and before I would commit to something else from the city attorney. So.
Yeah, I would vote to get rid of the Lux. Let's just start with that. And I think we have to big picture principles. The polluters should pay. So I agree with risk bonding. We should spread this around the state, the risk in the short, really the immediate term, and then in the slightly less immediate term, work on eliminating not only the storage of fossil fuels by not using them, the transport of fossil fuels by not using them, and then the burning of fossil fuels by not using them. And so here I'll bring in the Portland International Raceway as well, which uses leaded fuels, right? So we address all of these things together. I mentioned at the beginning that I worked in human rights advocacy at the UN. I was working for the Lawyers Committee on Nuclear Policy when Fukushima happened. And watching the reports come in these ever increasing cataclysmic stories and in parallel, first is data, and then the story started, right? And This is not on that scale. I hope never to be in a position where we're talking about anything on that scale happening here. But it's also something that puts into relief what we're talking about, because it's not the type is the same of risk, right? Even if it is on a smaller scale. And so having the ability to look and say, here's the risk. I mean, for people like Laura and I on the peninsula, we're gone if something goes, explodes at the big blue bomb, and but we're dealing with risks that transcend a lot of our other concerns. And so understanding what the actual prioritization is, because public safety is what I work in. The first step to public safety is having a planet you can live on and having an environment that you can live in. Yeah, thanks.
I'm Marty Glickman. I would vote to revoke the Lux permit and work to persuade my colleagues to do so as well. And again, I keep bringing this up because we are going to be city legislators for all of you, and one of us can't do a lot. We need at least 7 of us. Second of all, the CEI hub. I want to walk my talk with you. I want to earn your trust. I've been on the river. I've signed the platform proposals from many environmental groups. I'll give you some specifics for those of you who haven't read it. I support introducing proposals for overlay zones for the heavy industrial base zone along the Willamette River. These are very powerful proposals that will protect us and against the dangers at the CEI hub, but the dangers from the other tanks. When I was out the other day with the kayaktivists, they were pointing out the other tanks that pose dangers. 30 seconds more. This is a hard one for 22 minutes. I'll calm down. Risk bonding, yes. And I also, 2 more things. Oh my gosh, 7 seconds. One, I'm going to keep my eyes out to make sure no one on the council makes backroom deals. And number 2, in my 1 second left, I'll leave it for later. I'd like to be on time. Thank you.
Okay, we all will revoke, right? I think we're all gonna vote to revoke. There are actually 4 branches of democracy. There's the 3 that we all know, and then there's advocacy. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to solve the very complex problem of the CEI hub. We're gonna need your backing. We're gonna need you to yell and scream and to occupy that 4th tier of government for us. You have to be the vocal majority for us on this topic. The city can absolutely revoke the land use compatibility statement. It's totally allowed by the Oregon State, provided the air permit isn't issued before we're seated. There's a lot of strong arguments for doing so. There, not only was it potentially an illegal process, Zenith has a history of lying. So it's pretty easy to say that they said they were going to do one thing and they didn't do it. Oh, what's the future going to look like? Probably more of the same. They're 2 years into a 5-year plan to convert to all renewable fuels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the city attorney is going to hate this for sure, because the city attorney was heavily involved in the outcome that we have right now. I'm totally happy to have a lawsuit from Zenith about that. We're going to get a lawsuit from Zenith no matter what we do, whenever we do it. So we should do it as fast as possible.
Revoke. That's an easy one. Maybe it's because I'm an ex-New Yorker. I don't mind calling out the folks that are folks. Let's call that person by his name. Dan Ryan sold us out, right? And it's up to you, to every single voter, to let the other people in this district know that the reason we have this problem and the reason there was a backroom deal was because of the current person running, who's a city council member. That's just a reality. And in some way, this whole campaign has been devoid of an actual real debate. We're all kind of trying to be nice, but that's the truth. And I know Laura was trying to be very diplomatic. I'm the one that's not. And I want to take off something Nat said. The reason we are talking about this about the CEI is because of you all. Yeah. It was the activists that have done it. I have worked with the tanks folks and all those folks. They are the heroes of this whole thing. You know, I've been an activist and an organizer my whole adult life, and I know that the fact is you cannot trust politicians. All the people up here making all these promises, don't listen to us. It's all about organizing. And so what I want to do actually, and I think of myself if I should get elected, is to be your voice, but to help you organize and to help be activists. Last thing I'll say quickly, I've been a 5-year NET member, neighborhood emergency team member. The danger of the CEI is not just the earthquake. It's every single day. The toxins that are being released because of all those fuels into the neighborhoods. So tell people, sort of put aside the danger when they think about earthquake, oh, that's far off. It's the toxins every day.
I'm definitely gonna revoke it. I live in the Cathedral Park, St. John's neighborhood. Those tanks go right in the cut, which is half a block from my house. I see it, I can smell it on a good day. Right. And Alana and I've had the opportunity to go and walk part of it with Nancy Kaiser and learn more about it and terrify you for not having lots of sleepless nights. But seeing that space and those 100-year-old tanks is a little terrifying. And I would more than happy to cancel that contract and to point out why, because they are they've increased what they're bringing in when they said they weren't going to. Even switching to renewable fossil fuels, that could be taking away from farming that needs to food. And we don't know what chemicals are in that. So are we trading one fuel for another, other chemicals? Yeah. So those are the things that I'm thinking about with that. Thanks.
So because I am not a politician, I'm a realist, I'm born and raised, and I know the city and I've done a lot of work. What has come to, and I think Diana and Lori, I'm seeing people that I was shocked, right? And so what that made me think about, a lot of people that I know don't know. My mother was on a tour with me and she had just sold 3 houses right in that neighborhood. And she was just like, oh my God, I never knew. And so when I think about it, it is, and I'm just gonna call it, it is people in underserved communities, people that look like me that need to know about this. So I think of what are ways that we can do outreach so we can bring all of y'all in the room together to really talk about it. And then another thing, what I know at the city is a lot of times we have people on the opposing sides and we never make them sit in the room together. We never do it. And I can talk about it from the history of contracting and all the way back. When we have these issues like this, we have to have both sides sitting in the room together because it's a different conversation when it's different with you and it's different with them. So we have to be real about that. Another thing, the city is risk averse. So we have attorneys that come in and they tell you what the risks are. What a lot of people don't know, we don't have to agree to that risk, right? And so just all of you guys keep that in mind because I see them regularly about things that I left. We don't have to agree to that risk. And so I know there's a lot of other things behind it. So I've started to ask the questions behind the scenes. And so this is a serious problem and we really do need to look at how are we going to resolve this and make everybody safe. I'm going to stop there.
All right, so yes, I'm Jennifer Park. To begin, I do think that we have the authority to revoke the Lux because of the illegal lobbying, because of the way that they did their disaster preparedness testing, so many reasons. So we can do that. I think we need to immediately come to the table with the county to implement risk bonding so that while we are abating this issue, we still have funds in a pot to address a disaster if it happens before it's been abated. So we need to, risk bonding allows us to get that money from the corporations and have it ready. So if there's a disaster, we don't have to go after them after that. And so I also think that we need to, this is another area where we can do really important interjurisdictional work. Like, does the rest of Oregon know that 95% of our fuel is on liquefiable land, right? That's gonna impact the entire state. The airports will be grounded. So we can get together with leaders of other cities and other counties and talk to them about the impact that this has on our entire community. It's not just District 2 and District 4. We are in the most danger, but it is going to impact everyone. And then the last thing I just want to mention is I think that it is our job to come to you and have you be part of the conversation. I do not think it is your job to have to rise up and tell us with your outside voices what you think. I think we should invite you to the table. So that's just one place. We don't disagree a lot up here, but that's one place where I want to call it out. Thank you.
Sweet. Thanks, candidates, for your answers. We'll do a quick 1 minute closing call if you have
30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Do you want to do 30 seconds and we'll pass the mic and we'll start. Do you want to start or do you want not to start? Okay, Marnie will start. What's the last things you want to tell people in this room today about your campaign, your platform, your priorities?
Thank you. I would like to represent you. I am one of the front runners because of all of your help. I have 742 donors. And so if 8 of you want to donate today, that'll push me over the edge. So thank you. Alicia is here. Want to raise your hand? Alicia is my field organizer. Please volunteer. We're having a ton of fun and we're going to make it through and with your help to City Hall.
Hi, I'm Samir Canal again, canalforportland.com. With an all new city council, we need people who understand how the city works, but aren't creatures of its broken culture. And having led a community engagement process that brought 1,500 people directly in and hundreds more to participate, as well as other processes beyond the Police Accountability Commission in the public safety space, I think I'm uniquely positioned to help with that. Additionally, to work with the local public safety coordinating council at the county. I'm the legislative lead for public safety at the city, which doesn't mean I lobby, but it means I help bring people together about what we should lobby on. That's how we can get things done in the city. And again, canalforportland.com. Thanks for your time. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, I'm Debbie Kitchen. My website is electdebbiekitchen.com. And I am just so excited about this new form of government. I served on the Charter Commission and really care about making this work, bringing more voices to the table, having more representation, having districts, you know, having a city administrator. All of those are going to make things better for our city. But you need to pick the right people for city council. So you need to pick people who are able to make changes. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, everybody. Mike Marshall for Portland.com. I hope you go to my website. It's my birthday on this coming Saturday, so we're going to be out knocking on doors. Feel free to come join us. I'm really grateful too. You guys get the award tonight. This is the best ratio of audience to candidates. So thank you for that. I learned a lot tonight, right? And that's what I love about running for city council. But on the council, I have a long history of speaking truth to power and bringing coalitions together to solve problems, whether it's marriage, equality, addiction, whatever the case may be. I believe I can do that on the city council. Thanks.
All right, so here's why you should vote for me. I'm running to represent you, and that's why I decided to run in the first place. I have found myself often in so many places where I'm the only city council candidate, like back here in January, listening to Sunrise, what their plans were for this year. I also found myself the only candidate at pro-Palestinian protests. Today was the only candidate that's probably ever been to a sweep where I actually watched Rapid Response sweep up a homeless camp of literally disabled queer youth. And this stuff has to stop. And so I'm here to represent you and fix the problems that we have in the city.
About that selfie we took at that protest there, Chris.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Park.
I've been in one in other protests.
Oh, okay, yeah. Jennifer Park. You can find me at persistwithpark.com, which was really telling of who I am. I want to seize this opportunity where we're laying the foundation for a new city council to elect people who are committed to setting up a form of governance that is centered around our communities and our people, who are going to make policies where the return on investment is the impact that it has on our communities. And that is why I am running. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Tiffany Penson, Tiffany with an I, Tiffani, Tiffany for PDX.com. And I first want to thank you for inviting me, and I'd love to be invited more and be in the room. I know what a legislative body is because I'm on the board of PCC, and what we do is we design policy, align it with budget, and we hold the president accountable, and this will be the same thing. I also know about managing big budgets. I manage a big budget of $600 million at PCC. And then I also work for the city of Portland. I had a team, I have a budget there. And so we need some people who do understand how it works, because we have to have the newness with the old schools. And I consider myself a proud old school.
Thank you for having us. Laura Stride. My website is lauraforpdx.com. I am a creative and an artist and musician, so that is something totally different that I bring to the table. I've been running and founded an arts nonprofit. And one thing that in my nonprofit world for the last 20 years is that you need a vision, and then you need vision, values, and a mission, and then you set your goals to get there. So I think that is something that Portland is lacking. We have all these things, we need a vision, and then we need to set our goals. Thanks.
Jonathan Cassini, 26 unions support me. That's the most of anybody in this district. That represents thousands of Portlanders. I have knocked over 7,000 doors. I probably visit some of yours. Our team has knocked over 10,000 to date. I invite you to come canvass with us, because what we're about is Portland's climate villains must go. And it's not just Portland's climate villains, but the corporate villains who are taking away the ability of people to make a decent living in the city. The only way we make a decent living for people and save the planet is to put the power in the hands of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as a reminder, my name is Nat West, Rev Nat for Portland. Thank you for spending time on local issues tonight and not watching JD Vance. Right? Easy choice. Yeah, I'm endorsed by Sierra Club, Jane Fonda Climate PAC, Sunrise, Street Trust, and my own ATU 757 TriMet Public Transit Union. On a bus, when I was driving the bus, I never turned away a person for not having fares. Poor people ride buses, poor people ride bikes, and then they put their bikes on the buses. And we're not going to get through this by cyber trucks and Teslas and Priuses. We're going to get through it with real change. Thank you.
Thanks, candidates. That's all for questions and summaries. I'll give one more plug for Sunrise PDX. If you want to learn more about what kind of younger people in Portland are focusing on for the climate crisis, feel free to talk to me or look at our Instagram, see what we're getting up to, canvassing for a lot of pretty cool candidates from now until November. So yeah, pretty awesome stuff. I'm not passing it off to Sharice.
Round of applause for
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, candidates. I did want to mention 2 candidates who sent their regrets, and they had things other than the VP debate to go to tonight. Michelle DePass and Alana Pertologini, who was mentioned before. So look them up. They really wanted to be here, but had other things going on. So wanted to say one last thank you to all of you for choosing to spend your evening with us, all the candidates and all of you as well. We know you had other candidate forums that you could have been watching, but I think we kind of probably all know who we're voting for at the top of the ticket. But this is a much harder decision, right? And we have all of these amazing candidates, and I, for one, think all of you would be great. So thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and for spending so much time and energy this season. I'm sure this is so much work, and it's like, oh my goodness, how are you all doing this? But really appreciate you taking this effort for all of us to make Portland the best place that we can be. So thanks for being here tonight.
All right, so we